Welcome back. Another Monday, another edition of Ask Mike, joined as always by Mike Irwin and brought to you yet again by DraftKings. DraftKings now live in the state of Arkansas. The crown is yours. Please bet responsibly. Mike, a lot of people kind of down on that Arkansas baseball team. Now they've won 4 games in a row, and without question, that was their best weekend of the season.
I mean, anybody that predicted that is lying. I mean, what was I talking about?
Taking on one of the hottest teams in the country.
A week ago, I was talking about the worst season since 2016, might not get postseason play. They just really looked bad. And there just didn't seem to be a spark. And then it kind of started with that Tuesday game against Little Rock, because Little Rock is good.
Yeah.
And they shut them out, scored a lot of runs in that game, and everything was working. The pitching was better, the hitting was better. But, I mean, that's not Alabama. And the whole thing just shocked me.
And that's at home.
Yeah, and that whole thing just shocked me, especially the Sunday game. I mean, honestly, I stopped watching that Sunday game for a while because I thought, oh, they're not going to win this game. Mm-hmm. And then they did. And the way they won it was impressive. So, yeah, a shocker.
Yeah, was it game 2? They put up the 15 runs, right?
Yes.
So other than that, though, their big wins of the season, Mississippi State, Alabama, doing it crafty, scratching runs, not making mistakes. It's more those culture type wins. Saw that again against Alabama. Georgia coming up here this weekend, Mike. They find a way to win that. Not only are we talking a home regional possibility again, as I believe Arkansas is up to 16 in the polls, maybe even one of the top teams in the conference by season's end. So great to turn the corner.
They're not that far out right now. So, yeah, if they were to do that. And if you look ahead to their schedule, it's not real tough after that.
Once they get through Georgia, I believe after Georgia, I think Oklahoma is the only ranked team they play. Yeah. But 4 games here, all against tournament teams. They got UAPB, they got to get that out of the way in Little Rock. The weekend set against Georgia, then Missouri State coming to Baum Stadium for a rematch, and that will be a tournament team. Yeah. And that has to be, I don't see a lot of college baseball games outside of Arkansas.
That'll be a big.
That's got to be like the game of the year in college baseball. 15, 14 extra innings, the 9th inning that was there. So it should be a really fun rematch. Getting into our questions here. Number 1 on the week coming from Hog in the South, who asked, does Cal have a legitimate chance of getting a quality center, or is this money issue I keep hearing about going to leave him out in the cold again? So basketball, Mike, still top of mind, as we did find out Monday. As expected, Malik Thomas is entering into the draft, though he could return to Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, this whole money thing is just a big mystery. I mean, if you talk to people, they'll tell you, no, come on. I mean, there's all kinds of mentions of bigs. I think I looked at a list of 10 guys in the portal. 3 or 4 of them have already committed somewhere else. But the speculation was that there are 2 or 3 of them that Arkansas was interested in. Being interested in somebody does not mean you got a shot at them. And when you start talking about Arkansas striking out, again, last week somebody ripped all over me, and all I was doing was repeating what Cal said. Now, why did he say what he said? I don't know. Mm-hmm. He said they don't have the money they had a year ago. And he said he's not going to get into a bidding war for high-dollar players. And so far, the evidence is that's exactly what's gone on. And not just for centers. There's been some guards that he apparently was interested in that one went to Texas. So he's not commented on any of this. Nobody's asked him. He hasn't talked to any local media. He has talked to some national people in the last week or so, but nobody's asked him about that. So it's just a big mystery to me. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have a plan. I'm not saying, I mean, the word I got last week was that Tyson had told him, look, I'm now helping the whole program with this patch thing. Uniform patch thing, and I can't be the only guy that supports basketball. You're going to, if you need a lot of money to go after some of these portal guys, you need to go to somebody else. Now, maybe he did, and we just don't know about it, but there's no evidence of that right now.
And typically, though, the biggest players, as we are seeing, they do happen early. Santos Cyril going to Miami, who Arkansas apparently was in on. Texas, I believe it's Isaiah Johnson and David Punch, the big power forward. 2 guys would have been awesome fits at Arkansas. They're spending big money there. So it doesn't mean that Arkansas is going to strike out, but would you agree with this? There should be some concern, some of these like high-end prospects probably a little less likely to come to Arkansas.
Yeah, well, I think the concern would be nobody's visited that we know of. Now, supposedly there's a mystery visitor this past weekend, or maybe there's one here now. Is that a guard or a big? Nobody's saying. I found one website that mentioned, and I'm told there are others, but I found one that mentioned a Cincinnati 7'1" center, and said that Arkansas was interested in him and reached out, but it didn't say anything about him having mutual interest. So that's the thing that has people concerned, is that there's been no reaction from any of these players, and that wouldn't just be bigs; that would be anybody.
Yeah, I think the name was Mustafa Team, Cincinnati. His last game
That's right.
UCF in the Big 12 tournament, 18 points, 16 rebounds, 5 blocks. That's exactly the kind of player
what
that
they
Arkansas needs.
So, okay, they're interested, but what does he say? And is this a bidding war situation?
And again, you don't have to like it, but bidding wars is just the way that business is being done. So if you want Samto Cyril, if you want Rob Wright, if you want David Punch, if you want Mustafa Team, you're going to have to be comfortable overpaying for them because they have a market.
And so the issue is, if you decide you want to keep Malik Thomas and he decides to come back, do you have the money to pay for that? And some of these other guys, Billy Richmond or whatever. And you obviously already paid to get the 3 biggies that you're bringing in as freshmen. You've already committed to whatever it is to pay them. So nobody really knows what the total budget is. Again, there are people that are saying the budget is still one of the top 10 in the country, but maybe
as it was last year.
But maybe it's not, hasn't increased. And this year in particular, in order to get some of these bigs especially, that's what seems to be happening. They're more of a bidding war situation than we saw last year.
Yeah, and the guards really deplete. You know, never say never. I know DJ Wagner's in the portal, but that he's basically gone. Darius Akov hasn't made an announcement. He's gone. Malik Thomas in the NBA, possibly hitting the portal. So your top 3 guards from a year ago all could be moving on. Next question here. Oliver says, we are definitely going the cheap route again this offseason, and it will bite us yet again. I don't know about that one. They spent a lot of money to get Darius Akov here, spent a lot of money to get Malik Thomas here, a lot of money to get Nick Pringle here. I don't know if I'd call it cheap.
Yeah, and the implication was that they went cheap last year. Well, I think that's a result of, I lose track of all these guys, but supposedly there was some big guy that they missed out on last year, and somebody determined that he was interested, but Arkansas, Cal didn't offer the money or whatever. Again, none of us know what his true budget is. And as somebody told me today that I was talking to, you're not even allowing for the fact that Cal himself may be looking at certain guys and saying, he's not worth that to me. He's not worth that amount of money to me. I'm personally not going to pay, if you go to Walmart and all of a sudden bread goes up to $8 a loaf, you may say to yourself, I'll do something besides eat bread. So I just don't know. I wish I could be more definitive on this. But the more people I talk about this, the more they tell me, yeah, they'll name off some names. Yeah, they're supposed to enter this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. But is there interest the other way? Don't know.
Don't be the kings of interest. Be the kings of actually signing and getting the deals done. That's what
right.
I think more people want to say. And you made the analogy there to bread. I mean, look, they need big guys. Maybe you don't have to have bread, but Arkansas's got to have a better presence in the post.
You would think so.
And if Malik Ewing comes back,
and look, there's a question on that. One time it was assumed he's coming back. Yeah. Okay, what happened? That suddenly stopped. And what I was told is, this is speculation. Nobody knows for sure, but it may have something to do with the fact that the NCAA recently has started seriously questioning some of these eligibility guys. I want to come back for another year. And several have been turned down. I don't think they've turned him down or we would know, but maybe they're having to look into this a little bit.
Rob Martin, the guard from High Point that really tuned up Arkansas in that tournament game, didn't win the game, but still he just saw this afternoon. He is seeking a 5th year of eligibility. His freshman year, he played in 12 games. I don't know how in the world he's going to get an extra year of eligibility.
Yeah.
If he's got a good enough lawyer, he'll probably get it. That's
Maybe
just
we'll
the way
see.
that things are going right now. Next question coming from H.L. McCamish, who wants to know why the sudden interest in scoring guards. I thought we already had those. Where are the bigs?
Well, I think, again, the thing with Malik Thomas, you don't know if he's not coming back. You have to be prepared.
Which, in fairness, creates a challenge. Like, hey, you got to leave open the roster spot, but you don't know what he's going to do.
And then Wagner, I mean, he's gone. You're going to get somebody to replace him. Logic dictates maybe you want somebody that'll score more than 4 or 5 points a game. I don't know. There was a report that a Kentucky guard, I don't do the names. You guys all know the names. I'm way past the point. I've had so many names running through my head over the last 50 years. Names mean nothing to me. But the Kentucky guard that played very little, averaged 4 points a game, supposedly he might have come in over the weekend. And there were Razorback fans reacting, no, we don't want him. Well, I don't know. I don't think 4 points a game is what Cal is looking for when he talks about replacing Wagner, but I don't know either.
I take Rob Martin if they could somehow get that one on.
Get him
that'd be a great.
eligible.
Yeah, he'd be like 24 years old. Come on down. But hey, one thing at a time here. Next question coming from Bud at Bud Walton, who asks, "What's the story on Semedo? He's a 7-1 center already on the roster, but nobody talks about him. He didn't hit the portal with the other 2 foreign big men, so I assume he's staying. Could he actually be in the mix for next season?"
Okay, what I was told about him is that they redshirted him not because he was injured or anything, but because they do like him and they do have plans for him, but he needs a lot of development. And after 1 year, where is he? Well, I was told, yeah, he might play some next year, but he's not a starter. He's not probably one of these guys the fans are thinking about when they talk about somebody coming in and being the big. You know, he's 7'1", 7'2", okay, fine. But they don't see him as being out there, you know, he's in the starting lineup. Might contribute some, and then it might be in 2 years he's your starter if he continues to develop. So I don't think he's the missing piece. I think that's what the question is about, and what I'm told is he's not.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, Mike, people want something that's closer to a sure thing. So something that somebody that you had on your roster that didn't get a chance to play, injury be damned, whatever, that's just not what people want to hear. It doesn't mean it's not what you need. It's just an element of people are looking for a little bit more right now.
Exactly.
All right, more to come here on Ask Mike with Mike Irwin. We got to take our first time out. Back here with more of your questions on Ask Mike with Mike Irwin, diving right back into it, and brought to you this week yet again by DraftKings. DraftKings, please bet responsibly. Next up, CBD Hog, who says Cal needs to just outbid every other team for the best players out there. Zero reason we shouldn't sign the best 15 players. Just outbid everybody. Hey, easier said than done.
Well,
right,
I kind of view that as sarcasm. There's no way to know. We don't know the person that sent this. We don't know what they really meant. But I'm going to assume that's sarcasm aimed at those people that think he's got all the money he wants. Just go get whatever he wants. Because again, there's a battle going on here among the fans. Some fans say, oh, give me a break. They got plenty of money. And other fans are saying, no, there's an issue here. And that's what I would really like to know. I don't know that Tyson is going to tell me, but I'd really like to know, because there are people that believe this, and I've talked to them, that they're spending more money on football because they know football has to get improved. And because they're spending more money on football, there's less money for baseball, there's less money for basketball, and we're just going to have to deal with it. I don't know that that's the case. But I think this is a guy that's basically saying, stop acting like that Cal has an unlimited budget. He doesn't. It may be one of the better ones out there, but he can't spend $20 million on basketball. He doesn't have it.
All right, couple one-word answer follow-ups here. Do you really believe in your heart of hearts, Mike Irwin, would John Calipari be the coach at Arkansas if he felt there was a problem in getting funding for his program?
I don't know. I think he probably would leave.
I'm going to assume no.
But that doesn't mean he may just be in a situation right now where he's not sure what's happening, where he's still grappling with it. And he's in a good enough position already with the guys that he's brought in, and maybe some of the guys that he's going to keep, that all he's got to do is add 1 or 2 bigs and he should be fine again. What that means, though, next year, if it's the same next year, then maybe you would see him go, maybe I'm going to retire, or maybe I'm going somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying, And I'm telling you, I don't know either way. Yeah. I don't know what this situation is. Nobody's talking about it other than you hear. I say nobody's talking about. People I talk to tell me these things. Doesn't mean I necessarily believe them, because people can tell you stuff and be in a position to know and still be wrong. But again, this is not the first time somebody has told me that you better get used to the idea that they've got to fix football. They know they have to fix football, and look no further than the Board of Trustees that about a month ago basically looked at the chancellor and for the first time ever said the academic side has to help football, because they figured it out. You can't continue to sit here and win no SEC games and 2 games overall. You're going to lose your fan base. It's going to affect the local economy. People aren't coming in here on weekends anymore, and 70 or 80,000, you got to do something about that. And the way you do something about that is get more money going into football.
So maybe he doesn't have quite the money a lot of people want to believe, but they probably are, in the top 25. I think that's safe to assume. Another one-word answer here. Do you believe that high-end high school players and a lot of transfers and their families have an interest in playing for John Calipari?
Oh, absolutely. I believe.
Then if you're see what I mean here? Like, if those two things are true, if we got a top 25 budget and a coach kids want to play for, it shouldn't be that hard.
What I believe, and this is one of the reasons why I think he's been talking about solving this transfer portal problem, where you get these portal guys, every time you turn around, people are hitting the portal, which then means a bidding war. And why he wants to see that problem solved. Because then it goes back to being, do you want to play for me, or do you want to just go to somewhere and at one time they're going to give you more money, but you come in here and I'll get you into the NBA, I'll win a championship with you. So I think especially if this portal thing gets resolved a little bit, the thing we talked about last week with Trump getting involved and how that's going to work, and if the House of Representatives passes a bill on that, just the transfer portal problem alone is an issue. And then whether or not this Commission on College Sports, or the College Sports Commission, whether they step in and actually start reducing some of this NIL money and get it back under control, where you're not paying $2 and $3 million for a center, you're paying $400,000 or something like that.
We have had, Hall of Fame coaches that have stepped away, maybe not directly saying they don't like the way the game is going, but those have been the indications. Roy Williams, I get he was more towards the end of his career, but still, he stepped away. There was still mileage left on that vehicle. Jay Wright had a long runway left. Could have absolutely continued coaching at Villanova, wherever else he wanted. He said, I don't really want this. Nick Saban in football was kind of the same thing. Cal has been a champion for the cause, as you indicated. He's at the forefront of trying to get this transfer portal thing kind of figured out, at least figured out to him. Next question coming from Arkansas, Jimmy White, who says, everybody talks about our McDonald's guys, Smith Jr. and Andrews, but what about our 4-star forward, Abdou Toure? He came up big for Team World in a close OT loss to Team USA at the Nike Hoop Summit. Cal knows talent.
Yeah, I mean, I assume, and I didn't watch this, so nobody talked about it that I listened to, but I assume this Team World was kind of made up of the 4 stars, and Team USA was the 5 stars. So they were expected to win this thing, and it went to overtime. It was a 2-point win, and apparently Toure wasn't even a starter. He came off the bench, but he scored 19 points. He had 6 rebounds and 5 blocked shots. That's impressive. This is against the best players coming out of the high school ranks this year, and he did that. And I guess he shot 61% from 2-point range, 66% from 3. And supposedly he fouled out Tyrann Stokes, who's, is he the number 1 guy in the country?
Number 1 recruit in the country, and I believe still undecided.
Yeah. So that's impressive. And it tells you once again that when it comes to going after high school players, you're not beating Cal. I mean, you can argue all you want about Portland, does he have the money and he's going to go for bigs or whatever, but it's not just guards. He gets wings too, and wings that are playing. And we know that Andrews, just from watching him in the McDonald's All-American game, that guy can go up and compete with bigs. So it's not all end of the world stuff. You know, even if you don't land some big giant guy like everybody. And look, Trey, these trends come and go. Maybe the trend next year won't be for the 7'2" guys. Maybe maybe somebody will figure something out, and you can beat these guys with better shooting.
The best teams in the country, they look at the Final Four, they all had high and big guys. They really
did. And it had as much to do with age as anything else.
That was my next question. The way the game's played now, can you really still win? Even if you handpick, hey, you can have 4 of the top 12 players in the country out of high school. Can you win that way in college basketball, or do you have to be older?
Well, Cal himself said he's had to change. And so he's going to bring in older players. Where are the older players right now? Come on now, come on.
In the portal.
Yeah.
And they're not here yet. Hopefully something's going to change, though. Should be able to see some movement coming up for Arkansas, you would expect, in the near future. Next up here, Batgirl asking, has Van Horn turned this season around? Moving on to baseball now. A week ago, Arkansas baseball was depressing. I was worried that Little Rock would crush us and Alabama would send us to the bottom. Now there's hope. Mike, we talked about this right off the top. They were basically a bubble team entering last week. What a great week as they go 4-0.
Tied for 8th in the SEC to tied for 5th. Jumped back from 22nd in the polls to 16th. And they're the 5th ranked SEC teams in the poll right now. Maybe it's 6th, but the point is, if you move up, if you're one of the top 4 SEC teams at the end of the year, you are going to be a national seed. You're going to get to host a regional. And they're not that far away. And the schedule is favorable. Mm-hmm. Who they have playing coming up. Once this Georgia thing is out of the way, then everybody they play is currently ranked below them. So, it could turn around. But we've seen this baseball team be hot and cold. Is it going to be cold again? I think this game coming up tomorrow night, Tuesday night, is important. We want to keep the hitting going again.
With some of the struggles they've had earlier in the year, have your expectations changed on how you view success? Like maybe preseason it was, well, this team better get to a super regional. That's kind of the line of demarcation. Has that changed to maybe like, well, hey, if they host a regional, that's a good season? Well,
I think the way they struggled now, if they come back and, yes, still host a regional, people are going to be a lot happier than the alternative. But there are some people out there that won't be happy. I mean, what happened? You were supposed to be better than this. I mean, they just won't. They're relentless. It all depends on what you demand as a fan.
Aside from maybe track and field, though, would you agree with me on this one? Nobody's got higher expectations in the fan base.
Oh yes, absolutely, and it's because of what Van Horn has done. It's that consistency, where he's always had teams that were right there.
You create a monster. The monster gets hungry, as said by a very famous man, Coach Nolan Richardson. Next up here, Hill Country Hog wants to know, where is all the offense suddenly coming from? I was shocked with that 6-run 8th inning on Friday. I stopped watching when they got behind on Saturday, only to tune back in and watch them score 10 in the 8th and the 9th. Wow.
Yeah, I think most of it was T.J. Pompey. I mean, he hits 2 home runs. This guy he's one of 2 guys that Van Horn was sitting multiple times, not just once. There was a couple of times that he got so frustrated with the fact that Pompey would come up with runners in scoring position and strike out. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Aloy. And both of those guys stepped up. Pompey, it was more dramatic. He hit, I think, a 2-run home run in the 8th of the Saturday game. Friday game, Saturday, it was a 3-run home run in the 8th. RBI single in the 9th. Sunday, he had a couple of hits. He had 6 RBI overall. And then, Aloy just stepped up. I mean, he had 3 hits and an RBI and a run scored twice on Sunday in the 7th. He had that 3-2 count, the kind he's been striking out on, and he didn't. So there's some indication, that those 2 guys really helped. Ryder Helfrich had another big series, pair of RBI on Saturday, scored twice on Sunday. Cam Koziel, 2 RBI on Friday, hit and a run scored on Saturday, and then the game-winning hit and RBI on Sunday. So all of those guys, it wasn't just 1 or 2 guys, it was a team effort. But I would say Aloy and Pompey were the difference.
And Helfrich is having an incredible season. He's absolutely looking like the part of a first-round pick. He could even end up being an All-American. He's been that special. More to get to here on the Diamond Hogs coming up. Got to take another time out here on Ask Mike. Back with more here on Ask Mike, brought to you yet again by DraftKings. DraftKings, crown is yours. Please bet responsibly. Diving into your questions here. Next up, Eddie Lynn, big fan of the show here. I'd given up on Aloy, but Van Horn stuck with him, and it's paying off. Guess that's why he's a college coach with 1,500 wins, and I'm a guy who watches on TV and pops off.
Yeah, he did a lot of popping off to me over the last 2 or 3 weeks, basically calling me and telling me what is wrong. You go tell Van Horn to just let Aloy go somewhere else. Just don't play him the rest of the year and tell him to transfer. Well, he didn't do that. And here, again, the most impressive thing that I saw was it looked like he dialed back on his bat speed, started hitting singles and doubles and driving in runs. But then again, in that Sunday game, he didn't score in that inning, but that was the inning in which they came back and tied the game up. He got on base. He had a 3-2 count, and that ball 4 was that far outside the plate. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the kind of pitch he's been swinging at and missing. And I've seen it over and over again, and he didn't do it. And I thought, wow, this guy's really got it. So I don't know who did that. I don't know if it was Nate Thompson. I don't know if it was Van Horn. But he got the message, and I think that's one of the most encouraging developments. If he doesn't hit another home run the rest of the season, but gets base hits, walks, gets hit by pitchers, whatever he does, I think it'll be worth it.
Next question here coming from Hog Redneck, who asks, has somebody, DVH Hobbs, finally figured out the pitching staff? Moving Dietz to Fridays was a smart move.
Yeah, look, Dietz to me is the one that really made a difference. I mean, he goes 6 innings, just gives up 2 runs. But even in that game, they were up 7-3, and then in the 9th, and then Parker Coyle had to come on because it was suddenly 7-4. And, I just thought Parker Coyle was big in that. I'm not saying Dietz didn't matter, but you needed a bullpen guy to come in and solve the problem. Now, in those other 2 games, Game 2, Gibbler, Steele Eves, and Colin Fisher, they're touched for 6 runs between the 3 of them. That could have been an issue. But the offense stepped in and bailed them out with a total of 11 runs in the 8th and 9th innings. You're not going to get that very often. So it's not just the pitching change that they made. It was a combination of that and the hitting. And then Sunday, again, Tate McGuire, the starter, goes just 3 innings, gives up 2 runs. And only one of those was earned, but they had three other relievers come in that game. Coyle, Gabe Gacklin, and Ethan McIlvain, and they shut Alabama out for 6 innings. That's your bullpen there. That's not your starter. That's your bullpen. So it's not necessarily the starting rotation that he changed. It's a combination of they hit better and their bullpen was better. And that's what you may look at now from here on out.
Mike, in your time doing this, how much can a week like this do for a team? Because, naturally they're hearing it, they're feeling it, they're squeezing the bats, they're missing pitches, that whole thing. 4-0 in the week, you kind of like catch your breath a little bit. Can you really see this going in a much better direction?
Yeah, well, you have to hope that they come home and now they're energized at home and you got a full stadium and you're going up against a really good team, which will bring the crowd out there. And then, yes, the whole atmosphere of this season could change this weekend.
Let's hope it does. Been a good watch, especially at home. They've had some good results, but had the ups and downs. Want to see more of the ups here as Georgia's coming into town for a big series. Next up here, Hogpen Regular says, I get it that Helfrich is one of the top catchers in college baseball, but I can't wait to see what Rutenbark can do at his natural position behind the plate next season. Having catchers that swing a big stick is a huge plus.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to look and imagine him. I mean, how often does a freshman lead his team in hitting? He was he was one of the guys that didn't have a big weekend. I don't know, what did he do? He went 2 for 14 on a weekend when almost everybody else was hitting. So his average dropped from over 360 down to 338. I don't think it'll stay there. I mean, he's good. And then you got to believe he's going to be more comfortable next year not playing in the outfield or at first base or whatever, where he belongs behind the plate, and then his hitting will be even better. So I haven't looked to see if he's got a 3rd year or that he would be draft eligible after next year. But if they got this guy for 2 more years, that's your team leader, and he's already establishing himself. He may end up leading the team in hitting this year.
Yeah, and Arkansas's had a decent list of catchers. I think of James McCann in my mind is maybe the best in recent memory of the last 20 years. Where do you put Helfrich? You think he's even better at the college level than McCann was?
I was looking at some of this stuff, and they're saying he might have dropped off a bit because he wasn't hitting. His average wasn't what they expected to be, but he's hitting home runs out the wazoo.
His slugging's higher, yeah.
Yes, and then he's had some issues behind the plate. He has. He's not throwing out guys, but some of that to me is on the pitching. I think a lot. They're stealing a lot of bases on the pitchers, not him. He threw one away the other day trying to get a guy at third, and a run was given up on that. And he's let some pitches get away from him. A lot of these pitchers are throwing the ball down around the dirt, and he's got to block them. And some of these are wild pitches. Very few are actual pass balls, but maybe there's been a slight adjustment, but for what I read, he's still going to make a lot of money.
Sure, everything I've seen as well. Looks like he is a surefire first-round pick. Really good behind the home plate, too, and, keeping things in control, pitch framing, things like that. We've heard the announcers make notes of that. Really important part of the game nowadays and really, quite frankly, for forever. Next up, Cajun Hog, who asked, a lot of Razorbacks came through to set up the sweep of Alabama, but which one was the most impressive to you?
Yeah, again, I think those two guys, Aloy and Pompey, were impressive, but I got to go with McIlvain. Because, look, it's a one-run lead, and you got to come in and deal with that in the 7th and the 8th against a really good hitting team that is desperate. They don't want to get swept. And what did he do? He struck the side out in the 8th. That was really impressive. All three of those guys went down swinging. And then in the 9th, I think he had a ground out to second, a ground out to third, and then a fly ball to left field. So it's just boom, boom, boom. You never even let the tying run get on base. So you never bring the winning run to the plate. That's how you handle that situation. And that, to me, was the most impressive thing I saw all weekend. Now, hopefully that cements him as their closer, a guy that might go twice in an inning or twice in a weekend. You might get him on a Friday night. You might get him on a Sunday. They need somebody like that.
Heading to Little Rock here on Tuesday, how do you expect the next 4 games to go down? Or what do you view as a good stretch here this week? Is 2-2 good enough? Or, hey, 3-1? Yeah. Now we're talking an even different team than you thought you saw.
I still think 2-2 would be, good. I don't think you can just expect them to win the series. They might. I don't think you're thinking sweep. Georgia's better than that. You got to also understand their head coach used to coach here, was the pitching coach here. And he's a lot of people. When I go around and listen to a lot of Razorback fans, they're already saying, man, he needs to come back here when Van Horn retires. Because they're really impressed with the way he's rebuilt Georgia. Not just from a pitching standpoint, but they're hitting the ball too. And if you look at Georgia, their Friday and Saturday guys are both ERAs, I think, under 1. And then they've got one of the best hitting teams in the league. So when you combine those two things, they were riding high with just 3 SEC losses, and then they just got clubbed by Florida on Sunday. And Florida's this crazy team that just, you never know what they're going to do. They're more unpredictable than Arkansas. But Florida probably is responsible for the fact that Georgia's going to come in here mad on this weekend instead of content.
It should be a lot of fun Tuesday night in Little Rock. A lot of those games in recent years. Big crowds, a lot of fun. Do the football thing on your own time. Mike, I'd like to see them play more baseball games in Little Rock. Maybe get a second game or maybe upgrade it to a weekend series, something like that.
Well, again, if you take a step by agreeing to play a Little Rock at Little Rock, maybe you play UCA, at their place. Maybe you do that, but you could play 2 games in
I think that's what I'd like to see. Maybe, as you're alluding to, that's somewhat what I was thinking. Tuesday UCA, Wednesday UALR, something like that. Both games in Dickie.
But you run the risk of making the bomb people mad. They're already mad. They're mad at Yurichek.
2 games.
Yeah,
2 games.
And we're talking midweek. So how angry is it? I mean, midweek they don't fill that place up. So it's not me that you have to satisfy. It's those fans. They get mad all the time.
Hey, those fans down there in Central Arkansas, we appreciate for watching.
Oh, they love it.
They show up and they show out. They fill it up whenever that team comes into town. Football, I give you a pass because unfortunately they didn't throw you a bone with the games on the schedule here for the last 10 years or so. All right, not done just yet. Final timeout. Moving on to Arkansas football, and we have some breaking news around the team on Monday. That's coming up next. Back here for our final block on Ask Mike, brought to you yet again this week by DraftKings. DraftKings now live in the state of Arkansas. Moving on to football now, and we do have some breaking news regarding the Arkansas football program. This was confirmed on Monday by the university. Jalen Brown, wide receiver, just 1 year on campus. Mike, he was a transfer from Florida State, no longer with the team. They don't know exactly if it was impeding an officer, obstruction of justice, somewhere in that vein. Had an incident, was arrested, kicked off the team. Ryan Silverfield, a thought on this. Not tolerating the actions that he talked about, wanted to see more accountability.
Yeah, this story came out earlier, and there was a lot of speculation over the last several hours of how is he going to react to this. And he didn't wait around very long. And this is, I think, a decisive action, and I think fans will react positive to it. I'm not going to tolerate this sort of thing. It's the first time he's had to deal with anything like that. But because of the sheer numbers that you have in a football program, it's more likely that a college football coach is going to have to deal with this than a basketball coach or baseball or whatever, because you've got so many guys on scholarship.
Basically around 100 players on a team, and as you mentioned, pretty much everybody nowadays getting a cut of something with NIL and the way things work. So our first football question here coming from WV Hog fan who wants to know, can you tell if Coach Silverfield is doing anything different in his practices, organization, philosophy, etc., that will make our team better than previous head coaches were not doing?
Well, it's not anything for certain, but there are little things you notice. I noticed the fact that he's moved around a lot from position to position. You see him, whereas Sam Pittman and a lot of other coaches I've been around, Frank Broyles was a CEO type guy. He didn't go up to the running backs. He didn't go to the linemen. He wasn't with the backfield guys. He was up in a tower most of the time watching his assistant coaches do their job, and then he would talk to them about what he thinks they need to do, and a lot of coaches do this. Silverfield is more of a hands-on guy. He will go to the offensive lineman. He will talk about blocking. He will talk about a pass rush. He goes to tight ends. He just moves around, and because he's, I guess, has a lot of experience in coaches dealing with the different positions, he's more likely to do a hands-on thing. What does that do to players? I think it impresses them, because they see the head coach coming around and paying attention to what they're doing. So I like that. We've seen him do some things toward the end of practices that are fun, like the whole thing they were doing in the off-season program where they had teams and they were trying to get points. I think he's still doing some of that. And we've seen some video where they're all laughing and they get together and they have a good time. I think it's very important that if you're going to have intense workouts, at some point at the end of it, you got to release the tension. Otherwise, it just becomes drudgery, and you don't like being out there. So I like that. He's come up with some drills I've never seen before. I talked about this last week, I think, where he had some offensive linemen, or maybe it was a defensive lineman. He had them fielding punts because they had to learn to keep their feet beneath them and have better balance. And it's important for an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, to be in balance. We've seen them lose their balance because their feet get all tangled up. So I think he's running some drills like that for everybody. I'm sure there's some other stuff if we were out there all the time. All of these things are interesting. I don't know what effect it has because you're not going to see this until the fall. So we can sit around and talk about, yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I like the fact that he did that. Well, this is good. I like the discipline part of it, but they've got to line up and play an SEC schedule and beat some teams that have been beating them. And that's, until you get that, you're going to have a lot of skepticism on the part. There's a lot of it right now, believe me. Anytime anybody, and we do that here at Pig Trail, we post practice video and post comments from players and coaches. And there's no question that every time you do that, more people are negative than positive about it. They're coming in there going, come on, it's a 2-win team. They're the same old nonsense. Until you show them, they're not going to believe it.
You ever try to, I heard you talking about fielding punts there. We hear about your high school days, back in Texas there. You ever try to field a punt?
No,
Was that
I've
your alley?
never seen anybody do that before. The only person that fielded punts was the punt returner.
Usually a safer bet, right? You want the right ball handler handling the balls in those kind of spots. So I would love if we can get Mike Irwin on video trying to field a punt.
It would probably bounce off the top of my head, but whatever.
Hey, at least you got something on it, right? Final question of the week. Hi-Ho Silverfield says, we've got some fans who are too dumb to be taken seriously. Looking at video from Saturday's scrimmage at the stadium, I kept reading comments about nobody showing up. The stands were empty. It was a closed scrimmage. You aired. Mike, we've been talking about this a lot. It would be cool if some of these things are open, and I guess to some extent the spring game will be open. That's probably the best we're going to get.
I still think it needs to be. He's not going to listen to me, and I don't necessarily expect him to. I've done this for 51 years. I'm going to give my opinion. It doesn't mean I sit around and get mad if somebody doesn't do what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is right now, with all this skepticism that I've just talked about, it would be helpful. And he's done a good job of showing we've seen some touchdown catches, and we've seen who threw them. We've seen some interceptions, and we didn't see who threw the interception. What is he doing there? Who is he protecting? I don't know. But when you show parts of a scrimmage, little selected parts, there's no context. Right before that touchdown pass, there might have been 3 or 4 that were overthrown. There might have been some that were dropped. We don't know. We don't see a lot of negative stuff. That's what I'm telling you. The plays we see are good plays. And I'm sure there's some negative. So I just think it's helpful if you let the media come in there and watch a scrimmage and let them honestly report on what they see. He's not the only coach that doesn't do that anymore. A lot of them don't. I'm just used to situations, especially in the spring, where coaches have the attitude, hey, it's the spring. I'm not worried about other teams spying on me. We have plenty of time to get ready for the season. I'm not having to play anybody but ourselves in the spring game. So yeah, go ahead and shoot whatever you want. I mean, virtually everybody allowed us to shoot anything we wanted in the spring, all the way up to a few years ago, and then it started to change. And maybe that's the way it is now, I don't know. But I think when you've got a situation like this, where your team won 2 games last year and no SEC games, and you've come in and said you expect to turn this around quickly, then I think you got to convince some people of that.
There's no spring portal now. This is the first time in the portal era there is one window that probably will be challenged by someone. Somebody's going to be mad about something or be off by something. There's probably going to be a lawsuit. It's just the way things go. But as it stands now, there's no portal. So if there's no portal, there's no fear of losing a player, having somebody sniff around your players that are performing well. Why can't they open up some practices?
I don't
Why
know.
can't they open up a scrimmage?
I don't know. But the answer I got from somebody, and this was a fan, he said, I'm not worried about it. He said, they'll have a spring game, and so you'll find out all this stuff you don't know by watching the spring game. And hopefully they'll do it in such a way that we do. You know what they want to know, what fans want to know? Who's the starting quarterback? Who looks good? Do both of them look good? Is there going to be a battle this fall? Because I fully believe one of them could be dominant, but you still want the other to be good. I like the fact that he's working both of them with the ones. So, but that, okay, what are the running backs like? Is there a running back like Mike Washington Jr. that can bust 40 yards right up the middle? Because we haven't seen video of stuff like that. What's the blocking like? What's the defense like? What's the secondary like? We've seen a lot of catches of receivers going back and catching the ball, and a defensive back's like doing like that again. That's that. A lot of fans are going, I don't like that. I like the fact that he caught that pass, but it didn't look like to me it was defended very well. So these are the things you want to look at.
Can they do something exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you guys have struggled. Can you do something to excite us?
And I've said this so many times. It's hard to know when you're going against yourself, because anytime an offensive player does well, it focuses negative on a defensive player. But what you like, and I've had coaches tell me this, what you want is a good mix, a back and forth between offense and defense. And you did sort of have this in this last scrimmage, because what happened was, what did they do? They brought in 2 players, offensive player, defensive player. Offensive player said, hey, we won the scrimmage. We lost the one last week. We won this one. Defensive player said, nah, we still won it. So you know, you're left with that. I would have rather had Silverfield come in and give the answer to that rather than the two players.
We're wrapping up here, just about out of time. Really, just trying to add some more time. A couple thoughts on football. Actually, in fairness, I think you'd probably agree. A little bit overlooked given the run the basketball team made, some of the publicity the baseball team has gotten, you know, with some of their struggles, and now it looks like they're breaking through that. In this run, dating back to 2012, which has been the worst in program history, what do you feel they have been missing? Is it a size thing? Is it a depth thing? Is it a speed thing? You know, comparing them to other SEC schools, where has it kind of come off the rails and it's made it harder for Arkansas to compete?
Yeah, lack of depth, and really if there's a really good offensive line, they usually don't have a good defensive line. You know,
Right, which was last year, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't get pressure, but they had a good offensive line.
Exactly. So there's just missing parts. You know, there's some good, but I think last year was the strangest season I've ever seen because you had this quarterback that now everybody's talking about in the draft. Oh, he's going to go high.
Maybe be a third or fourth round pick.
And I'm just looking back on that, and I'm now thinking to myself, he was poison to this team because anytime he did something spectacular, later on he was going to come back and do something to get you beat. And why couldn't they figure that out? Why couldn't Petrino finally at some point say to himself, okay, I'm either going to have to simplify things for Taylon Green or I'm going to have to put another quarterback in there because he's losing games for us. And it's going to be interesting now to see, now that he's gone, does the team get better? And I think maybe it will.
Did it seem to you in that Missouri game, because I felt this way, I think a lot of other people did, for whatever reason, even though this kid doesn't have the same talent level, the offense seemed to work a little bit better under KJ Jackson, which maybe there was just some Taylon fatigue.
No, I thought they should. The mistake in that was you let him start and then you took him out.
He played well.
What are you doing? I mean, you want this, if he starts off and he's looking good, why do you take him out and then stick him back in again later? Yeah. Let him get some momentum under him.
The only thing that I could think of, they had owed it to Taylon, his 2 years of service, doing kind of everything that they wanted him to do. Taylon, do you want the start of the game? Do you want the finish of the game? You can't have both, and he likely got the finish of the game. Mike Irwin, great insight as always. Certainly going to be keeping an eye out on that baseball team, and really only a week and a half away now from Arkansas spring game as they shut down spring football here for the first time under Ryan Silverfield. Out of time. Thank you so much for checking out Ask Mike.